Okay.
Hello and welcome to the first Pundits podcast. This is a silly podcast between two old friends who used to be, well, not Irish. It's a landmass between us. You know, we were probably in geography class at some stage. There is some significant landmass between the two of us. Isn't that correct, Simon?
Yes, I used to live in Ireland, but I'm moved over to Norway now. So I'm quite a ways away. You silent out a bit there, Michael, and you've also pressed on your face, so it's only going to show you for the entire podcast. I don't know,
Oh,
maybe
let's
that's
not do
your
that.
ego kicking in.
Yeah, definitely not doing that. It's switching around for me. I don't know. I don't know what I should be pressing, but
Or
let's
maybe
not
it's
do.
just for me that it's showing just you. That's might be fine.
Okay, well, well, it's
We'll find
certainly
out.
varying around. Yeah, maybe if yeah, and I'm switching with you. Who knows? I seem to be switching around the thing. I seem to be the director here. Anyway, I mean, I've gotten ahead of myself. I'm the host, Michael Block, and this is my friend Simon Canton. We're schoolmates. He's the expert pundit today. I'm going to attempt to be the host for episode number one. Perhaps we'll share hosting duties or swap them every alternative podcast. Simon, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself? Where are you now? Where are you living at the moment?
Yeah, so I'm over in Fredrikstad in Norway because my wife is Norwegian. She's from Fredrikstad. So we moved over here in 2005, and I work a day job in IT, and then in the evening times I write books, which I put in my lower bit there.
What kind of books? What kind of books do you write?
So science fiction and fantasy books, and they're kind of actiony, kind of light-hearted books. So my most popular series is the Bitter End series, which is kind of like it's a fantasy series that doesn't take itself very seriously. So there's like jet-powered trains, and people ride around on cows, and all kinds of strange weapons, and all kinds of stuff like that.
And
So it's not exactly Tolkien. It's very different than that, and it's very action oriented.
and I think you do a bit of other kind of podcasty type of work just in relation to writing as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, not so much podcasting on a regular basis, but I do the occasional vlog and things like that over on my channel, which is just YouTube/S Canton, I think, or YouTube/Simon Canton, something like that.
And
Uh,
I think it's
just
fair to
search my
say
name.
we got together a couple of weeks ago. I've been interested in trying to do something like this. This is going to be a little bit more lighthearted, certainly not grammar and writing, but I think we share a sort of a mutual interest in what I call 80s culture, which now seems to be known as nerd culture. Why don't you talk about some of the things that we hope to talk about here? I mean, generally entertainment and games and video games. We kind of grew up when that was the start of what is a massive industry now.
Yeah, so both of us watch quite a lot of TV, and Mike
So
is
says my waist these
specific.
days. Yeah, yeah.
And movies, but and games as well. But I tend at least to be a little bit behind the curve because I've got three kids, so I don't get out to the movies very often. And I'm in Norway, so I don't see the newest TV releases right as they come out. So sometimes I can be talking about stuff that actually came out a while ago. But the advantage of living in Norway is we have HBO Nordic, which means we get the HBO series the day after they come out in the States.
That's right. I
Um,
remember you telling me about that. I mean, I think HBO Nordic that was kind of an experimental concept really for out of America. Isn't that correct? You were telling me about that a couple of years ago.
hmm.
Obviously, HBO Go recently this year was announced as being it's not in place yet, but the plans would be that it would be internet only based. Whereas at the moment, although HBO is an app on a lot of devices, you need a sort of a password and username from a cable subscription. I think that's going to be changed. But actually, as a forerunner to what their plans are for the States and perhaps Europe, um, is this HBO Go Nordic? I mean, you were the experiment which is leading to whatever it's going to happen in the next 12 months in America. I mean, talk to me a
Yeah,
bit about that service, because I mean, that was but Netflix is huge now, but I remember when it was first being offered here, and people were like trying it for their 30-day trials, and really the initial experience was like, well, not too bothered about that. What was it like for your version of HBO Go when you started?
It's an important distinction to say that it's not HBO Go.
Yes.
It's HBO Nordic is not as good as HBO Go.
Hmm.
HBO Go is its own platform. It seems like HBO Nordic is nearly like a franchise or a licensing agreement or something with another company, because HBO Go works on lots of different platforms and has no technical issues that I know about, at least. I've got a friend who's American,
Hmm.
and he has tried HBO Go and says that on his Apple products it works perfectly. Now, HBO Nordic is a different platform, uses a different video player, has a different setup and everything, and it's kind of clunky and old-fashioned compared to Netflix. So I've always thought that HBO Nordic has better content, but Netflix has by far the better platform. And they're kind of competing against each other because they see a future, I think, where someone either has HBO Go slash Nordic or Netflix. Because Netflix is desperately trying to make original series because HBO is becoming a Netflix. Um, Whereas I can see a future where people ditch their cable companies and just have those two instead.
Well, I think that's right. That's where it seems to be heading, um, for sure. I mean, and you mentioned about Netflix. I mean, their plan has been to do this original content, and original content's fine, and but it's all great, but people have to be watching it. I mean, they've scored a little bit of gold with Orange is the New Black, now and coming into its third season, and House of Cards coming into its third season. But if they'd made a number of uninteresting series, I mean, it would have been a huge problem for them. But I mean, they spent wisely, got big stars, and hit it and chose wisely. They've got gold. But I mean, they're coming up catalog this year, Netflix. Um, just from my point of view, looking in, is just so impressive. I mean, I think we've spoken about this before, but just for the audience. I mean, looking ahead, series like Longmire, which is a series 3 seasons in, very kind of specific audience, cancelled by, I think it was uh, not AMC. I don't know the owners of that property, but it was sort of a small American, well, not a small, but an American network. Even though it was hugely popular, very interesting series, that kind of westerny kind of thing. A little bit like Banshee, kind of a very clique audience, good numbers, and it was cancelled. And Netflix have taken it on. I mean, they're literally going to go, oh, right, you don't want to use your IP that has this huge fan base. We just want it. And they don't even need to share the numbers. It's just all about goodwill, I mean, if they get a certain amount of people who they think, it sounds good, they're going to have, the way it's lining up at the moment, it looks like they're going to have a new show every month. I mean, one of the disappointing things, I just like your comment on this is, because I'm interested. I know you're watching Game of Thrones, and you seem to be a season behind, and I'll talk to you about that later. But one of the interesting things, the last couple of years is Orange is the New Black would come out, and you'd marathon it over 2 weeks if you were that type of person, which is the way they want or are kind of selling it as, and the same with House of Cards. But you got this series, and within 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, you'd finished it. Now you go, oh, I've got to wait 12 months until the new season comes out, which is very unlike the week-to-week thing where, okay, there's a hiatus over a summer period, but the show comes back in 3 months. Waiting 12 months is very difficult. I, for instance, found it a bit confusing watching the second season of House of Cards or the second season of Orange is the New Black, going, what the heck happened here? It's been 12 months. But I mean, it seems to be now, they're going to have a new original series every month. Daredevil, I had no interest in. I was looking at this trailer. It looks very interesting, very impressive series. But anyway, that's Netflix. It'll be interesting to see. Amazon are going to compete. They had this very successful in the Emmys anyway film, which I'm trying to think of, which is about transgender issues. I think it's Transigence or something like that. It's the name of that show. Won massively at the Emmys, and they're going to step up the game as well and try and get exclusive content for them, and it'll be interesting to see how that goes. I know what's the equivalent of Amazon. Do you have Amazon Prime? Not you personally, but that's available in Norway. Yeah.
No, no, there's no Amazon Prime.
Okay. Well, yeah,
So
that's
we got
interesting.
HBO, we got Netflix, and we've got what's it called? There's another like Norwegian version one, and the Norwegian version one is Norwegian shows, like shows that are made in Norwegian,
Uh-huh.
and reality TV garbage that I wouldn't be interested in. So we don't have that, but we have Netflix and HBO.
Well,
Um,
just before we move on, sorry, go on.
I was just going to say that the what you're saying is the model that Netflix. So if you take, I don't know, CBS or someone, or ABC or someone in the US, or one of the major networks, they need people to watch through the adverts. That's how they make their money.
Sure.
So they've got a completely different type of show that they need to make, whereas Netflix need you to keep your subscription for a month. So they need to have a show that you're desperate to watch and are willing to pay $10 to watch for that month. Which $10 is not that much, really. If you bought a series on DVD, it'd be at least $10 anyway. So that's why they're kind of doing that. HBO is kind of having trouble, I think, because they've got a 6-month gap. So Game of Thrones kind of, and all of their other popular shows, or at least from my point of view, the ones I'd be interested in watching, all stop in June, and then there's nothing until January of the next year. So there's 6 months of just blank.
Yeah,
Just
I mean HBO. Yeah, I mean it's interesting that HBO clearly have an amazing amount of content, which is very well regarded, very serious content, and obviously in Europe it's kind of been bought up mostly by Sky. So they had the newsroom, which anything with Aaron Sorkin, kind of is pretty amazing by my book. But I mean, and they have a lot of shows. But all of these shows are cyclical. You can't get all the good shows all the time. HBO have been doing a good job of that for many years. But it all comes down to it, which is, why would you pay for a demand service if all of a sudden they don't have a newsroom anymore, or they don't have your Grey's Anatomy, which is, I think, an ABC series, or whatever it is that you love. So it's interesting. I think Netflix has changed in a way. Even if you don't like Lilyhammer or you don't like Daredevil, it's just another reason not to cancel your subscription. I mean, that's all they need. They need you just to be paying. You think it's small money. You think £5, £6, or £7 a month. Oh, it's nothing. But I mean, like, I love Netflix, but I'm not sure if I've actually watched anything on it recently. But it's great to have it there.
well,
Having
that's
said that, the sports channels you pay an extra £30 a month here in Europe for Sky Sports, and when I had it, I watched a lot of sports. But actually, having cancelled that, it saves you £30 a month. So it certainly gives you room for buying 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 monthly on-demand shows instead. And the truth is, you get by with it live sport. Although that was something I watched phenomenally an awful lot of at the time. And but you kind of think, why? But say,
But it just, I mean, my whole problem with both Netflix and HBO in general is that the illegal service. So I'm, I guess silly or whatever. I don't download anything, so I don't pirate anything. And the illegal service is better.
The Pundit podcast does not support illegal activities. Yes, absolutely. Go on.
But my problem is that the legal ways of watching shows are 1,000 times worse than the illegal ways. So everyone in the office, let's just say some people in the office who will go unnamed,
yeah, Mr. Rogek,
download all the stuff and get to see it before I do. So apart from HBO shows like Game of Thrones, I'll be within a day I'll have seen it, but they'll have seen it the day before because they pirated it, which is just so stupid. I mean, if you're a content producer, don't you want money? I'll pay you money to let me watch your show, and you won't show it.
I agree, but I mean, I think you'll agree that the difference when we were growing up. I mean, you'd be watching whatever the popular show was at the time, whether it be Eeyore with George Clooney or whatever. You were talking about 3, 4, 6 month differences between airing episodes in America to here, and movies even. I mean, weren't simultaneous release. The rise of the internet pirate has meant that that is, the truth is that The Walking Dead on a Sunday night in America is usually on a Monday, on European television. It can be no longer than 24 hours because of piracy. So I agree with you. And obviously they can't simulcast it. They tried to do that with 24 this season, and I think I did stay up and watch it, but because things are like 8, 7 central, they're like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Um, there's plenty of crazies like me who'd stay up, on a Sunday night, to watch some sort of premiere of the Game of Thrones or whatever.
But it's a very American-centric view that it has to be on in America first.
Well, what
It
you're
could
trying
be
to
on.
say is, yeah, but I mean, could you imagine an American show with American money being released at 8 p.m. on the same day, but therefore within 8 hours of each other? It would be brilliant for us Europeans, who are a massive part of that audience. But I mean, the same problems the
American.
Americans have with Europeans pirating that sort of stuff, or the stuff coming out, is crazy. I think one of the biggest problems, and I don't know if I haven't asked you, is whether you're on Twitter. Are
I
you
am
on
on
Twitter?
Twitter. Well, you
Yeah.
contacted
Well,
me on Twitter, remember?
yeah, of course, yeah, of course you are, yeah. So, I just forgotten because we don't directly tweet that often. But I mean, if you're following particular TV shows that you are keeping up with, even if you are watching it the next day, when you wake up, like if for instance, if your show is on Monday because it's in America, it's on Sunday, and you wake up and you go to work on a Monday morning knowing that whatever your local TV station will be playing, the newest episode that Monday, you better make sure that you don't actually, inadvertently look at anything in Twitter which was like 4 hours previously, because 4 hours previously was probably, 3 a.m. in Europe here was probably prime time American, sort of tweeting time, and things get spoiled left, right, and center, So you
Well,
actually have
like,
to actively avoid stories now, which is which brings me back to your point, which is it should be simulcast because actually you've got actors in the show being paid extra money to simulcast tweet for the interactive thing. Now, it wouldn't be of any benefit to you because it's 3 a.m. in the morning for us in Europe. But by doing that, they've literally spoiling the show themselves. I mean,
well, that's the thing. For Game of Thrones, which I'm a huge fan of, I don't go on social media for all of Monday. I can't go on
you
anything.
can't. You
So,
can't.
so spoilers for Game of Thrones for anyone who's watching.
Yeah,
So
spoilers.
the Red Wedding
Yeah.
was. You've seen everything up to the end of season 4, Mike, haven't you?
Yeah, exactly. I have.
Okay,
Yeah.
brilliant for you. Okay, so Red Wedding didn't get spoiled for me. That was great. Ned didn't get spoiled, but the Yellow Wedding did,
Mm.
because someone posted a picture on Facebook of Joffrey with Ding Dong Doggy
So,
with
yeah, yeah.
Joffrey dead. So I went, oh, thanks very much. Now I know what's going to happen tonight on Game of Thrones. That's great. Which is just like, uh, it's. I get it. I get that Americans don't think that there's anyone in the world apart from people in America. So they think, well, everyone's seen it now. It's in America. Everyone's
But in
seen it.
fairness, it's not an American problem. It's just a problem for people who are watching the show because it's not just
Well, to
Americans
be
see it. There's
reversed.
plenty of people who are getting it. Yeah, whoever gets it first could be in Ireland, could be beside you, Norway, your mates in your office who are watching it at the same time as those in America or downloading it an hour afterwards. I mean, I have a remarkable Game of Thrones story in the sense that I remember when it first came out, everyone said you have to see this show, and I remember trying to watch the first episode on 2 or 3 different occasions. And look, you remember me. I'd watch anything. I mean, we watched Ed Wood, but like the original movie that was made by Ed Wood, not the Johnny Depp or whatever, Plan 9 for Outer Space. Wasn't that it? I don't know. But so I had managed to go 3 years without seeing Game of Thrones at all. Like, I tried to watch the first episode, but I said, it's not for me, this is a bit too whatever. And then I think it was on Sky on Demand, and I just kind of downloaded, the series or whatever, or I was recording it, and I just had them all there. And I think it was during a summer, well, on my break, and I marathoned through it, and actually it got better, and I was really into it, and that was cool. But I'd managed to get to see the Red Wedding's in season 2, isn't it? It's the end of season 2 or something like that. Was that right, or season 3?
No, I'm trying to remember now.
I think
I
it's
think
the
it's
end of
season
season
three.
2. Oh, it doesn't matter. Anyway,
Yeah.
I managed. But the point there is that this is all happened. It was old news by the time I watched it, and I wasn't following anyone on Twitter that because I had no interest in the show, and so I'd managed to get over it, or just totally, if
Mm.
I'd seen it, I didn't understand the relevance. But the problem is the very thing you're talking about actually is ruined for fans, because if you are a fan, you're probably you probably are following. Um, news outlets, or sort of actors who are connected with the show, and so you just get spoiled. So it is a problem. But the truth is that people are silly about things. People go out there and people try and spoil things for nothing other than
Well,
badness.
the
But
amount of roles in the world at this stage. But I was
yeah,
going to say about Game of Thrones. So Game of Thrones, and this is similar to what I was going to say about Better Call Saul a bit later.
yeah.
Is I watched the first episode of Game of Thrones, and I probably watched 20 minutes of it, or half an hour maybe,
Of
and I
season
was
one.
of season one. I
Yeah.
was bored out of my mind, and I said, "This is not for me.
Mm.
I don't know what everyone's going on about. This is boring."
That's the exact
Uh,
same as me.
so I stopped, and then everyone's going, "Game of Thrones, Game of Thrones, Game of Thrones, best show ever." So I went, "Okay, I guess I'll give it another chance." And I watched first episode and maybe half of the second one, and I went, "Actually, this is a really good show." And I wasn't like it was just a boring start. Um,
Yeah, I felt the same way. I do think Dinkelbot, who's a great actor, especially in The Station Agent, definitely kind of sucked me in, and then I started liking other people. But yeah, definitely similar story to you. Yeah.
and Breaking Bad was the exact same thing. So I watched the first episode of Breaking Bad, and I went, "This is interminably boring. Like, who
Actually,
cares
I did
about
the
this
exact same
teacher?"
thing as well. Yeah, I had the same thing with Breaking Bad too.
And
You
Breaking
know,
Bad's probably Breaking Bad and Game of Thrones jointly are probably the best shows on TV of the last 10 years.
absolutely
Um,
and Breaking Bad in particular, because although you're always going to that amount of seasons, you're always going to get episodes that are slightly disappointing. But Breaking Bad just seemed to have an overreaching, quality. Genuinely,
hmm.
there was a quality everywhere. And to keep it going for that long, and even to have some of the best episodes at the very end, including the end, or the last two or three, like some of the best, like they're all very good, but some of the best at the end,
Well,
it's a testament, because things peter out. We've all seen that.
I mean, you know that a show is good when anyone can say, "I am the one who knocks," and you go, "Oh, that's fucking epic. That's epic." Like you just like the show is so good that it has a line that everyone goes, "Oh yeah, that was a good show."
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely.
It just
But
had its moments over and over and over again. They were so great.
but
But it
I
did require some it required you to persevere. I mean, a little bit. And Better Call Saul. What I was going to say was that
sure.
the first half an hour of Better Call Saul was interminably boring again. Like I couldn't. Like the first thing they did wrong, which was they called it a comedy and it's not a comedy.
Hmm.
It's not even slightly funny. There's no jokes in it. They have Bob Odenkirk, who's a comedian,
Hmm.
which is fine. Comedians can play serious roles. But don't get Bob Odenkirk and then say this is a hilarious comedy and then there's no jokes in it. Because then immediately you go in going, I'm not laughing here, okay, this is not funny. Whereas if they'd said this is the dramatic follow up to Breaking Bad, I would have gone in with a completely different frame of mind. So I kind of stopped after half an hour and went, oh, okay. But then I realized that I'd done the exact same thing with Breaking Bad and the same thing with Game of Thrones, and this is probably going to be a great series. It's just that the first episode is going to be weak.
That is so interesting, because it's really funny. I obviously heard about Better Call Saul a while back, and I mean he is a good character in the Breaking Bad universe, and mostly with the comic relief of that kind of stereotype of hi, I'm Troy McClure. You might know me from such infomercials as whatever, that kind of
Mm.
American lawyer kind of shtick. But at the same time, he was great in that show, and to be honest, I'd heard about this for a long time, and I had no interest in it whatsoever, because I said, this is a great show. There was an awful lot of Breaking Bad, and I think we probably all had our fill. And I actually, because of that, I stayed away from everything, and I didn't even think like they were describing it as a comedy or anything like that. I actually didn't get them, sort of saying this is a comedy, this is a comedy, which is what you're saying. That was your impression going into it. I had no impression, and then I went to watch it, and I actually was the opposite. I was very pleasantly surprised because I assumed it would have been a comedy, like just some sort of laughy thing, which would have been okay, but where would it go? But what I realized from the very beginning, without spoiling anything, um, it sets the scene and then takes you back. What I realized from the very beginning, and then at the end of episode one, I've only seen the first episode, is that clearly this is going to be a serious drama with serious writing and serious thought going into the show, in the same way as they treated Breaking Bad. That this is not going to be some, the whole problem is that when I heard about it, I said it's a spin-off. Oh God, spin-offs of terrible, terrible reputations. I mean, it would be an interesting game to say what is the best spin-off you've ever heard of. I mean, Joey from Friends is terrible. Anything else you can think of, just absolutely awful, abysmal. And so therefore the whole connotation of this was like, this is not going to be good. Like, of course he's a good actor and he has a charm, but really will it work? But actually you just think, God, this is going to be like Breaking Bad. It's going to be treated seriously. It's going to be dark. It's not going to be light. It'll have light moments because the guy is humorous. But I actually thought that first episode was, really quite good. Really quite good. And I was interested to see what it's like. But so let's see.
I mean, they've got a very delicate line to tread, which, if they'd have started a new show with Better Call Joe instead, and started with a new character, then they would have been in a better place, I feel, than Better Call Saul, because we know where Saul's ending up, and we know who Saul is when he ends up there. Like, he's not a strong guy. Like, Walt pushes him around all the time. Even Jesse pushes him around. He's not like he's got no backbone at all.
Yeah, but he's a smart guy in his own way.
He is and he isn't. I mean, he knows people in the business. Like, he knows Mike and people like that.
Yeah.
So he knows who to call, but that's not the same as being smart. I mean, he's a guy with lots of contacts, I feel, but not someone who could run. If he was in Walt's shoes, he'd be dead in a week. Like, he wouldn't be able to cope with it.
Yeah, but I think one of the things we learned about Walter White is that he was like this simple physics, maths teacher, science teacher, and people underestimated him. That was what the show was all about. I mean, I always thought that Saul was, quite a clever, albeit a schlocky lawyer. You know what I mean? That he had about a nous, he wheeled and dealed, but that he wasn't stupid. He may have some, lowbrow clients, but he was able to get through tricky situations, including surviving, several attempts on his life, by Walter White and other people throughout the show. I mean, let's not forget that he managed to, without spoiling Breaking Bad, clearly if there's a Better Call Saul episode, even seeing the first 5-10 minutes of it, I don't think it's spoiler territory to say he managed to get out of that show alive, clearly, even though a lot of this is flashback. It'll be interesting to see how the show develops, and certainly it's a worthy show. There are a lot worse shows, whatever. I agree with you. Maybe if it was a show in its own device, it might be better. But in many respects, it is an interesting world, and it'd be a pity not to get back into the world of Breaking Bad, even with another viewpoint. So we'll see. I certainly enjoyed the first episode. I very much. I thought it had quality. Mostly, I thought it had quality. Like this is good acting. This is good writing. It's interesting. So,
I mean, Vince Gilligan has earned our
trust. Yeah.
Expectation, trust. Same as Aaron Sorkin. You were talking about Newsroom earlier. Aaron Sorkin has earned some trust there. Now, Newsroom, I thought, fell apart completely in the third season. It was just awful in the third season. But you disagree?
Look, it's one of my favorite shows. I also think Sorkin gets like an an unbelievable amount of absolutely unfair and silly criticism, and mostly criticism. Like, for instance, that was a show where, it appeared, in some respects, and I don't want to be completely, general, but it seems that journalists and reviewers reviewing that show felt personally slighted by the show.
Oh,
Often,
well, obviously.
no, but like literally, so many tweets about, you know, newsrooms aren't like that. Well, one, it's a TV show, right? I mean, it's a dramatic TV show. So I'm sure the White House wasn't run exactly like,
Well,
Jeb Bartlett's, sort of operation either, or, Joshua Lyman. I mean, another great series, and I do hope you've seen it. You've seen Studio 60 as well. Like,
yeah, it was a good show.
I mean, one of the most amazing things is that although I've watched a lot of The West Wing, it's a long running series, and I definitely lost touch of it at certain times. So I saw a great majority of it, as most people have. I wouldn't be a completionist, but I've seen all of Studio 60. I've seen all of the Newsroom. There's another show, it's Sports Night or something like that, which I haven't seen, but it's meant to be
Yeah, I
very
haven't seen it
similar.
either.
But what's very interesting is, and what's very clear is, Aaron Sorkin in his TV shows seem to be telling the same story all the time, right? I mean, some of the jokes about the Christian right and believing in angels come up in the Newsroom as much as they come up in Studio 60.
But I wrote a blog post about this. I
Yes.
wrote a blog post about this. So in West Wing, they have real Republicans.
Mm.
So then they can have an argument, and Aaron Sorkin did this really well in West Wing, where he gave the Republicans a well thought out point of view that supported their beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't like he said, I'm a Republican, rah, 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 Bibles and guns. He gave them a reason why they thought that. And then he had the left-wing guys going, yeah, but you're wrong because this and this. And the right-wing guys would go, no, you're wrong because this and this. And like they were making intelligent points. And Studio 60 the same, but there wasn't really that much politics in it. But in Newsroom, Will was meant to be a right-winger, but he wasn't. He wasn't a right-winger at all. I mean, he was in no way a right-winger. He was completely left-wing.
I don't think so. I think he is exactly, but I mean, that's what the show's all about. He's like saying, you're calling me a left-winger because I X, Y, and Z. He's saying that the Republican movement had got so far. Republican movement was just, less government control of taxes and, conservative values, Republicanism, in Sorkin's mind, even from the Republicans' point of view, had moved far too much into the crazy territory. So it was all about defining that. It's an interesting, subtler argument. One of the things, just to not to interrupt you too much, is, well, you get things like being said by people in the business saying, "Oh, look, newsrooms aren't like this," or even in other shows, well, people don't speak like this, they don't whatever. It's like, this is hyper realistic. It's like The Few Good Men, which he obviously also wrote as well. Lawyers aren't always, word for word perfect or, dealing with this thing. They go and do a job. It's real world. But no one wants to watch TV shows or movies about that, where people who are meant to be intelligent don't make mistakes, etc.
I understand the media backlash against Newsroom.
Sure.
And that's because the media in America doesn't do its job.
Yeah.
The media's job
is what the Newsroom is all about.
Which is, yeah, exactly. That's why he made Newsroom, because the newsrooms don't do their job. Their whole point is to question power. So if they get whoever on, if they get Mitt Romney or they get Barack Obama, they should be asking them questions that Barack Obama and Mitt Romney don't want to answer. But instead they just quote the press releases. That's not your job. You're not a freaking stenographer. You're meant to actually ask questions. If you're Fox News, you should research all the stuff that Barack Obama is doing and ask him serious questions. If you're MSNBC, you should research everything Mitt Romney's doing and ask him questions, not just quote his freaking press releases. That's not news.
I agree. That's exactly. And you see, the terrible thing is, it's like, people go, "Oh yeah, well, you do this." It's like, it's not my job. It's like you turn around and go, "I know this to be true. I can't do the research. I don't get paid to do it. If my only job was to research this stuff, well, then I should be doing it. I don't. I've got to do, you're doing IT, you're doing this podcast, you're writing. Normal people who are looking at their media and looking and going, what the hell are you doing? Are being asked, well, why don't you do this? It's for the public. It's like, it's not for the public to do that. That's what you're paid for. Your entire job is to sit and research these things. Anyway, that's a hobby horse. Let's moving
Yeah.
into some media. Let's move and get through. Some of the things we have a sort of a short list that we wanted to talk about that relatively in terms of news. Um, I'll sort of introduce it. I know you've read some of this. I've read something about this as well. There's a computer game story. It's about a very famous and well-known games creator, Peter Molyneux, formerly of Lionhead, but now of 22 Cans, which is a studio he set up after he left Lionhead, which kind of now really owned by Microsoft. Famous for the Fable series, and indeed Peter Molyneux was famous for his part in the creation of the Fable series, a game I loved on the original Xbox, and all of that. Now, Molyneux is an interesting character, a charismatic character, and a guy clearly with good ideas, but he has a reputation in the industry as being somebody who has time and time again in games that he has, created, developed, and produced, and sold to completion, overpromised, and it appears that he's gotten himself into a little bit of problems again. Just by way of background to the story, I'll ask you what you think. He currently there's a game called Goddess, but Goddess is sort of the created product following an initial product, and I think he had set up a game dealing with cubes, almost like cubes within cubes and cubes, and the winner of this cube competition, I'm trying to remember the name of that game.
Curiosity.
Curiosity, that's right. Was promised a prize that was, unmentionable, so good you wouldn't believe. He'd be like a god in the game. Is that
The
right?
quote was, "It would change your life." It was a life-changing prize.
Life-changing prize. Well, he certainly. So, just looking at this, and there's an article that's been circulated today and yesterday as well. I saw it first yesterday, and it's in Eurogamer, but it's in a lot of the sites. It's certainly in IGN and GameSpot, but
I think Eurogamer had it first. I think they're just quoting Eurogamer.
yeah, I think that's absolutely correct. But I'm just trying to find it here.
Well, it's on the document.
I have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So I can talk about it if you want.
yeah, sure. Just while I'm waiting for it to.
So Curiosity, the cube thing was that there was this big virtual cube on the internet.
Mhm.
And by downloading the app on your phone or your tablet, or by having it on your PC or Mac or whatever, you could click on the cube and it would take a little bit of it away. So every time someone in the world clicked on that cube, it would take a little bit of it away. And the promise was that the last person to click on the cube was going to win a life-changing prize. So the person who clicked on the last tiny piece of cube to finish the whole thing. And the cube itself didn't change in shape or size or anything, so you didn't know when the last piece was going to be. So this guy, I can find his name actually. Brian Henderson.
Yeah, he's a Scottish guy.
The last guy. He was the one that won the life-changing prize. So he was told that he was going to be a god of gods in Goddess, and he was going to get 1% of all profits from the game as God of Gods.
The famous back-end deal, as it were, yes.
Well, yeah, exactly. It's like getting net profits in a movie. So he was invited down to 22 Cans in Guildford, I think they are, and he was sat in front of an alpha version of Goddess and basically forced to play it for 3 hours, even though he found it boring. And then they went down the pub with them, and he said that all the 22 Cans people ignored him. He'd brought a friend. He'd been allowed to invite a friend. So he and his friend were basically sitting, being ignored by the staff at 22 Cans, having a pint, and then someone eventually turned up who was willing to talk to them, and they talked for a while about games or something, and then he went back to Scotland, and he got a T-shirt and a poster. So that's the extent of the prizes he's got, and it's been like a year and a half or something.
And I know Goddess is a free-to-play game. I actually downloaded the free-to-play version. I don't
That's
obviously.
really annoying too. I've played Goddess, so I supported the Kickstarter, so
Yeah,
I
I
bought
mean,
into it as well. And I played the beta version of Goddess, and because I loved Populous and Warmonger and things like that,
sure. Yeah, yeah.
and it's not good. It's just boring.
I mean, I
No
messed around.
game.
I messed around with it. Certainly didn't, buy any product from it. I got the free thing, and I messed around for like an afternoon or something like that. Um, I mean,
Well,
what's
it's a betrayal of the whole Kickstarter thing because they've
well,
made
this is
a
happening time and
microtransaction
time
game.
again, isn't it? You know, I mean, it's
Well,
happening time and time again.
the problem is there's two problems. The first is when you're going to kickstart something, that should mean that it's going to follow a kind of an indie cred version of development. What you can't do is take everyone's Kickstarter money and then make a microtransaction, spamware kind of phone game. Like you're not allowed to do that. Now, granted, the amount of money they get from Kickstarters, and this is the problem, isn't enough to make a game.
Hmm.
So, like Takedown, for instance, I also supported. Takedown was this guy, Christian something, made this game. Takedown was meant to be a ultra hardcore, ultra serious game, like the old SWAT games. Do you remember those, Mike? I think we
Yeah,
played them
yeah,
on
yeah,
Amiga and stuff.
yeah, yeah. I know I do. Yeah, yeah.
Where the bad guys shoot you and you're dead. There's no like respawning or anything, and you have four cops. So in the SWAT team, so if they all get killed, that's the end. You've lost. So you have to be really careful. The terrorists slash criminals are really good. They can shoot you really easily. And the game wasn't very good. And uh, and this is a problem with early access as well on Steam.
Mm.
That they're giving people access they're charging money for games, whereas it used to be maybe 5 or 10 years ago, a beta version was given out free to fans to help test the game. Now they're charging a full retail price for a beta, and that means the
Yeah.
people then feel like, oh well, I should be allowed to review this, and they give like 1-star reviews because they say this is a load of crap, it's not ready.
I mean,
And,
yeah, yeah. I mean,
and
the
then there's
industry.
backlash from the developers because they're saying, well, this is a beta, why are you reviewing it?
You see, Kickstarter is a very interesting thing. In some respects, some projects would not be built without this stuff, and for that respect, this crowdfunding, it's an amazing model. But
Well, Oculus is
really,
the same. Oculus came out of
Oculus is the
Kickstarter and
same.
then completely betrayed its
Well, I
funding.
don't know about that. I think everyone who bought into Kickstarter Oculus project will get its dev kit. At no
Yeah,
stage
but
did they
that's not the
say,
point.
no, I know. At no stage did they say, "Oh, don't if this all works and we give you everything that we promise you, that you have a stake in the company." You know, um,
No,
the
no,
whole
but
point.
it's not that. It's
So they
so
can
the
sell it on.
whole.
They can sell it onto Facebook for as much as they want, in my view.
There's no legal reason why they can't.
Yeah.
There's only a moral reason, and the
I
moral
don't think
reason.
I don't think that's immoral. I mean, I genuinely don't think it's immoral because no promises have been brought. What do you expect? These guys aren't doing it like obviously some people just do it to get X done. So I'm going to make Rogue Legacy and that's it. But even if you make Rogue Legacy and it does well, even if you do nothing more and you don't sell Rogue Legacy on as to some multinational company to publish it and make more money than you thought, even if that's all you do, you have improved your company's status. So your next game is going to be better. So there's always going to be, if a Kickstarter is successful, there's always going to be a kind of a carry-on benefit, which isn't directly going to be garnished by the people who invest in the money. I have no problem with that. I think one of the problems I have with Kickstarter is, when people don't come through with their promises, because the minimum you should be entitled to is, if you pay your money, is that the promises be achieved within a reasonable time. And what they're doing, in one of the difficulties for that 22 Cans has, is that in an article a couple of days ago, which has led on to this new Molyneux article, and this is how this started, was a couple of days ago, an article was written on a number of similar sites such as IGN and GameSpot and Eurogamer, simply saying that the now management team of Goddess admitted that it was going to be very difficult for them to complete all of the stretch goals on the Kickstarter
Yeah.
for
Did you see who the
Goddess.
management team is as well?
I didn't, but you can tell me. But what's interesting is they then kind of said that Peter Molyneux's moved on to a different project, and I
Yeah.
think that probably
No, none of
got
the.
this guy. Nobody in the original team are there anymore. Is that right? I don't know. You know.
Well, the guy who's in charge of the project is someone that they took on as an intern a year ago. So they, in charge of this supposedly major game, is an intern who's only been in their company for a year. Like, if he's an intern, I have to assume that he doesn't have experience, so therefore, there's nothing going to happen with
Well,
that game. That
the
guy
game
knows
is
game.
out. I mean, in fairness, the game is out in the form. There's
Yeah,
obviously
but it's.
other things to go. I think that the thing is, I think the notable thing is that it's very clear that Peter Molyneux, who's the head of this thing, has moved on to a different project before it was finished. And I think on foot of that, somebody else did some more digging and went, oh, what about that guy who was promised this and that? And they probably gave him a phone call, which is where the genesis of this story that came out yesterday and today about this Scottish guy, Mr. Henderson. But what's kind of, I think what's most disappointing is, 99 times of most Kickstarter projects, whatever they are, from games to, hubcaps, are mostly people who are unknown. This is a chap who is in the industry and therefore, had much more experience. So when he sets out, this is what we're going to give you, and here are the stretch goals, there's an argument that there's a representation that this guy knows what he's doing, and this is how he knows how much money is going to be required for this. So that's disappointing. But having said that, Kickstarter is the way it is. There's no timeline. Maybe it'll all get there. I think
But,
what's
but
interesting
my,
is just to finish that story up, although I'd be interested in that, is that on Polygon today, there's an article from Ben Katura, and he's the headline is quite clever. This is clearly a bit of a piss take. Is Molyneux's broken promise to his quote God fulfilled by another developer? And this is a story about another developer who's making a game called Not a Hero has somehow or another inserted a sort of a pixelated version of Henderson into their game, and although he's not a playable character at launch anyway, that he's going to be given some godlike powers and some sort of pixelated screenshot of something or another, and it looks like an interesting sort of 8-bitty kind of game, but clearly these independent developers thought that here's a story, and this would be a good bit of advertising for their game. So maybe there's some sort of silver lining for this chap anyway. It looks likely that Henderson, maybe through shame, will get some sort of prize out of this.
well, I mean, I would be seriously surprised if he doesn't get something, but it's going to be way less than a life-changing whatever.
Yeah.
Like the my experience from Kickstarter, this was I don't know, a few years ago probably. I invested in lots of different Kickstarters, maybe I don't know, 15 different Kickstarters for computer games. And one of them was FTL, which was great.
Yeah, I haven't played this, but everyone says it is one of the best Kickstarters for sure.
Yeah.
Did you invest in Star Citizen?
Star Citizen, no.
That's the one that's at like 70 million or something like that at the moment? Or is that the one? What's the one that's 70 million, or is that
I
the one?
don't.
Yeah, anyway, okay.
I mean, I haven't been on Kickstarter since I invested in those first batch. And out of the other 15, Wasteland 2 actually came through. Jagged Alliance Flashback wasn't very good at all. But they kind of, yeah. Kickstarter, at least when I was investing, was about games that they didn't make anymore. And they were going to do a budget version of those games that never even appear anymore, because it's all Call of Duty shooters.
Sure.
So all you see is shooter, 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 and there's no like Secret of Monkey Island or Populous or anything like that. They're not trying anything new because big budget companies won't risk it. So then smaller companies, well, where there's only two guys, so what's the risk? Which is perfect, where you get games like FTL, and FTL did what all Kickstarter developers should know to do but don't, which is to over-deliver. So if you promise something, then deliver more than you promised. Don't deliver less. If you deliver less, then there's going to be backlash and bad reviews, and that's the end of your game.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, even from the major publishers, Activision's doing it, Assassin's Creed or, Watch Dogs. I mean, even for the guys who are the professionals in the industry, the big AAA titles, they are getting absolutely creamed every October because they're over-promising and over-hyping games, and you've all heard the stories about, downgraded screenshots and graphics, E3 presentation says X, but I mean,
That's
like,
the
if
key thing.
no, but I mean,
They
if they
can't
are
keep
doing that,
presenting
they're
people.
getting screwed on that one, and therefore you'd think independent developers would certainly, offer less, modest, promise, the correct thing, and if they can deliver more, so be it.
Well, I don't know if it's just me, but I at this stage will wait. I will never buy a game at launch unless it's BioWare or
Did you ever
uh,
play the Mass Effect series?
yeah, Mass Effect are great.
Yeah,
Other than
I
the
played
ending,
all.
the ending was terrible.
Yeah, I know. I mean, like I played all three on Xbox 360. Yeah, I had a lot of fun with that. I had a lot of fun with that, and I mean, did you do FemShep or were you,
Oh yeah, Femship all the way.
Yeah, because I didn't really play Halo, so I wasn't like, oh, well, I'll do the FemShep with Jen Taylor's voice. So I kind of did the male version for all the way through the campaigns. I had a great time.
But
I would,
I on those kind of games, I always play a woman anyway.
what other BioWare games have you played, or Dragon Age and stuff like
Um,
that, or
Dragon
Co-
Age, uh,
Coco?
Dragon Age Origins, and Dragon Age Inquisition. But I skipped the second one because people said it wasn't very good.
Hmm.
But it's now on sale, so I might actually not on sale, but it's cheap because it's
Yeah.
old. So I might go back and buy it just to try it because people said there's a lot of backtracking in the second one. The
Okay,
first one I didn't enjoy as much, but Inquisition was amazing. It was really good.
that's the one that's out recently, though, isn't it? Dragon Age
Yeah, it
Inquisition.
only just came out. So as I say,
Yeah.
like I won't pay full price for most games, but I'll pay full price for BioWare games. So I paid full
Yeah,
price.
I mean, some people. I mean, some of the outlets definitely have voted that their game of the year. Certainly, I haven't bought that one. I bought a lot of games this year, but not that one. I mean, just that looks like something you would just think. I've got a backlog of Shadow of Mordor and all these things I've barely played any games with. Like Dragon Age Inquisition, I'd say if it's anything like Mass Effect, it's going to be brilliant. But equally, I look at that and go, that's like 300 hours of your life just right there. Like, it's like I don't have those 300 hours.
Well, I did pretty much the minimum, and it took me 60 to 70 hours to
Yeah,
do it.
I mean, exactly. I mean, you wouldn't play 300 hours, but I mean, there's definitely 300 hours of doing everything in those type of games.
Oh,
I mean,
like
I'll
easily,
get onto that. Yeah, I mean, I mean, like, I'm going to ask you about Witcher in a second. Actually, we'll move on because we're already into an hour almost at this stage. But
yeah.
so okay, next news item. I think we don't need to spend too much time with this, although I want to ask your opinion whether you think deliberate or not deliberate. House of Cards was all over Twitter yesterday. I know it's in The Verge are reporting on it today. IGN are reporting on it today. A number of episodes. I think the first 13 episodes arrived on Netflix.
First 10 out of 13.
10 out of 13 arrived on Netflix yesterday and were quickly taken down. Obviously, a number of reporters, people I follow on Twitter, Jonathan Dornbush, who's one of the hosts of a very good podcast, the very TV podcast, which I'm not sure if it's still making content anymore, but I really enjoyed. He was watching it. He was like, so tweeting out, watch it now before it's taken down, and it was too late. I think The Verge reported something similar. It's funny, at the same time, the Twitter page, the official Twitter page for House of Cards, said something like, even in Washington, we get leaks, tune in on the 27th for, the full thing. I just asked you very quickly, people are speculating whether this is, how would that happen? Was it done deliberately as a marketing ploy? I mean, just my own top and take is, people are saying, oh, it must be deliberate. How would that happen? I mean, it's very easy. Clearly, these things are on the servers, and I
It's a
assume there's,
flag.
somebody probably
The
just
little button
testing
that
it.
just says put live.
Yeah, there's a put live, but presumably there's some internal put live to only to Simon Canton to test if he can get it. You know what I mean? Does it work? And it somehow or another went, send to all, before people notice it. But clearly, it was for people to watch 10 episodes. It was clearly up for some time. Do you think it was? Do you think it was a little bit of marketing going on there or not? remembering that in Valentine's Day was the day they launched last year, so they're doing it a week or 2 weeks later.
I wouldn't say it's deliberate. I don't know, but like, I
Why
would
would
say that. Yeah, why would you? Because you're already got an anticipated series.
exactly, exactly. They don't need this kind of silly stuff. Like, if they wanted
If
to, they could do something else under their control.
if there was a thing in the first 10 episodes where something incredible happens, there's a nuclear strike against America or something, then they might tease it. But if it's just the same old, like we know what we're going to get from House of Cards next season.
Mm.
The people who haven't watched the first two seasons aren't going to care, and the people who have are just going to watch the next season anyway. You don't need to tease it.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you on that one. Last thing on that issue, are you enjoying House of Cards? I mean, do you remember the British series? I
Yeah, I
know.
watched House of Cards and To Play the King, which were both very good. I haven't watched the third one, and I keep meaning to.
Hmm.
And they're better than the American one.
Hmm.
Um,
And how do you find? I mean, but have you enjoyed the first 2 seasons?
First season was very good. Second season was, oh, that's convenient quite a lot.
Uh huh. Uh huh.
Like he would do things, and you go, okay, well, he's against a smart opponent, so he's just lost. And then the opponent will do something, and you go, oh, that's convenient. He just did exactly what Francis wanted,
That's
just
funny.
because he's the hero.
Well,
Not the hero.
here, anti-hero maybe, a villain maybe. Um, yeah, I mean, I actually think maybe we might be surprised in the third season. I think they might really, yeah, I think they might get their swagger back. I think it could be interesting to see what happens. So we'll move on from House of Cards season 3. Looking forward to that in a couple weeks' time. I think it's out on the 27th on Netflix exclusively. Yeah, the Birdman. You wanted to ask about this. Have you seen Birdman, the movie?
Not the movie. I just saw the trailer. I thought you'd just seen the trailer. You've seen the movie?
I have seen the movie, and I mean, I think you tweeted you emailed me, it says interesting, or is it going to be just some sort of art house sort of whatever? I'll tell you this. I think you're really going to enjoy this movie. It's a kind of it's an actors type of a movie. It's a filmmaker's kind of a movie because there's some technical stuff which I think you're just going to go, I see the seams. You're going to be saying to yourself, I think you're going to be saying, I see the seams, but this is damn well impressive. And there's some downright good important. It's a bit like theater. It's a bit theatery, but then again, it's a film about theater, right? But I actually think it's a really impressive piece. And I genuinely think it's the kind of movie that actually will be as good now as it is in 20, 30 years. It's that good, because it relies on the performances. It doesn't rely on CG or any trickery or some shock twist or anything like that. It's just it's an enveloping story. It reminds me a lot of good theater, and good theater will never die. That's why they keep doing the same plays, time and time again. So yeah, I definitely think you'll enjoy it. You need to sit down and want to watch it, but it's not. I mean, not that that's something
But,
you're really into, but I mean, like, genuinely, I think you'll enjoy it.
like, I think it's very difficult. You have to really be in the right mood for those. And for every like closer or something like that, where it's an actory kind of thing, you get 100 other ones that are incredibly tedious, and they're just made to make.
I mean, like, I'm not the biggest fan of Edward Norton. I think he's good. I've always thought he's a good actor, but I'm not his biggest fan. But I think he was brilliant in this. I'm a big Michael Keaton fan, but this is you just realize how good he is, and really, and how he was always very good. And yeah, sure, he's been in iconic movies when we were growing up, like Batman, but that he was always a better actor than just not that I think those movies are exceptional, and I'll always remember those Burton movies, but that he's a very talented actor who gets to show off a few things here and there. Genuinely, I think
Well,
it's
I think
and
Batman.
it's about them.
I think Batman was a mistake for him. I think because he is a very good actor. Like you saw it in Jackie Brown, for instance, he was really good in Jackie Brown. But like everyone just goes, "Oh yeah, he's Batman," and like ignore all the other stuff. Whereas he would have been not necessarily massively famous, but one of the
Well,
character
yeah.
actors that turns up in things and is really good for his whole career instead of just being the Batman.
I mean, I really like Michael Keaton, but I think the truth is that he was never going to be um, some sort of superstar leading
No,
man
no,
type of
no. I
guy.
don't think that either.
And therefore, this was his only chance to do kind of an everyman Batman. That was the only chance to do those kind of big movies. Remember how badly Clooney managed to completely capitulate on that, and look where his career went. Despite,
Well, that wasn't Clooney's
despite,
fault.
no, I don't blame him,
That
but
was
like I've seen,
Schumacher's fault by
no,
far.
totally, man, I love Joel Schumacher to bits. I mean, like but no, good old flatliners. But and did Joel Schumacher do the Lost Boys?
Uh, maybe,
Yeah,
maybe.
really. Yeah. Just I don't know why I'm thinking that, but Flatline is always what I think about Joel Schumacher. But in any event, yeah, look, I think Keaton's Batman will always be remembered. I think he's done some amazing other films along the line, and including like The Paper. I'm trying to think of other things. Obviously, Beetlejuice, and I think he's going to be brilliant. I think it's going to be a great film to resurge him back into some popular sort of stuff like Beetlejuice 2, which I hear is being greenlit. I don't know, Lost
He's
Boys.
pretty old at this stage, I would guess.
Yeah, but he's plenty fit.
Oh, he's now moved up to number one for Michael on IMDb.
Really.
Um,
But yeah, anyway, in
51 he was born. But yeah, Schumacher did direct Lost Boys.
yeah, okay. I haven't seen that movie in so long, and anyway, I must look at that again. All right.
Hence all
Okay,
of the undertones.
yeah, we've talked about Better Call Saul. We talked about Birdman. I'm certainly recommending it. I think you need to sit down and want to watch it. But uh, but and kind of steel yourself for that. But I think it's well worth it. We'll just leave one more topic that I want to ask you about, and we can finish off um,
Sure.
this episode with that. And we'll turn to games because we've talked obviously about Peter Molyneux, but that's not specifically games itself, more the creator. We've talked a little bit about Netflix and TV. Birdman, obviously, a sort of a filmic reference, but really specifically games. Um, The Witcher 2. This recently was a Games with Gold free downloadable for Xbox 360, so I downloaded it as being part of that program, which is very good. But I was actually going to buy it last year or the year before. It was gone on sale a few times, but I didn't. My problem is that I'm on Xbox One. I have my 360. I'm getting all these free games every month. I'm just downloading them because they're free. Um,
But
but
they don't work on.
I'm not turning on the old console. But at the same time, The Witcher 2 got amazing reviews at a time for even for the 360 port, which is meant to be a good port of the PC. You played it on PC, I presume. Yeah,
Yeah.
you played Witcher 2. How
Yeah.
far have you got through? Did you complete it?
No, no, no. It's not completed. I don't know. Maybe 20 hours into it or something.
And tell me about it because there's obviously the next gen Witcher 3 is coming out. Like that looks again like a game that's going to just like absolutely kill your life. I mean, like I wish I was 18 all over again. I mean, we had so much time, like But what do you think? Yeah, tell me about The Witcher 2. Should I be playing it? Is it good? Should I play it?
Um, so I think a problem I have is that I played it straight after Dragon Age Inquisition, and Dragon Age Inquisition is like a game of the year kind of game,
Sure.
and Witcher 2 is not. It's good, but it's not game of the year kind of thing.
Hmm.
And the thing that the Witcher series does, because they're made in the Czech Republic, I think, or maybe somewhere over in Eastern Europe, is that they're 18s games, and they have an 18s attitude to both sex and violence.
Sure.
So there's full nudity in the games, which is not something you see in any other game.
I mean,
And
isn't Dragon Age Inquisition got its fair amount of risque kind of stuff, or is it just very
it's
like
got
Mass
boobs.
Effect? Is it just like Mass Effect, where you have certain scenes
Yeah.
here and there? Yeah, okay.
So you know in Mass Effect 1 where everyone got freaked out because you got to see the side boob of a blue alien.
Yeah, a
Um,
cartoon. Yeah, basically.
yeah, a cartoon side boob
Yeah.
of a blue alien who's not even human.
Mm.
Whereas Witcher has like full
Although
fun.
Miranda Lawson is like still one of the most interesting protagonists in that series.
The one that everyone accused of complete sexism because she's just designed to be a male fantasy.
Well, there is that. I mean, it is a Von Strakowski, so say la vie.
Well, exactly. She's hot in real life. You don't even need to have the cartoon version.
Yeah, exactly.
But so The Witcher 2 is a little bit of a more of a grown-up version of a computer game. So there's no kind of
Filter.
straightforward quests like here is the good guy, here is the bad guy, go and defeat the bad guy to help the good guy. Whereas The
Hmm.
Witcher 2 is kind of, and The Witcher 1 as well, they're um, here is this guy and he has this, he thinks that he's right, and here's this other guy and he thinks he's right. Which one do you want to help and which one do you want to kill? And you can kind of see both of their points of view. You can say, okay, well that guy, obviously the other guy screwed him because he took his pig, and but he screwed him because he, I don't know, shot his dog or something or whatever. And you go, okay, they both have a point of view, and you just have to pick one. And then in another game, another like a Mass Effect kind of thing, it would go, hey, you chose wrong. This guy was actually the good guy, and this guy was the bad guy. And then The Witcher, it's just, okay, you chose that one. And now we're going on to this other thing where there's another moral choice, and you've got no
Well, from
way
what
of
you're
knowing.
telling me is, it's is it a lot of choices like an adventure game, or is it an RPG? I mean, is it just something where, like, how does it control? I see it, the photographs. It's like third person view. You control a
Yeah,
man. He walks. Do
same
you
as
press A? Do you press A and does it just like slash a sword and jump, or what happens?
yeah. So you can go and kill things. The Witcher, Garrett, or
Yeah, guard, I think.
no, it's
Garant
slightly.
or something.
Yeah, I can't remember exactly his name, but anyway, um, he won't kill anyone intelligent unless they're a bad guy. So he'll kill a murderer, or a rapist or whatever, but he won't kill someone who's just stolen chicken or something. But he'll kill. There's a lot of um, creatures like demonic kind of things, and he'll go around and kill them. So there's a lot of going around and hacking and slashing them with a sword. Um, and I would say it's like Dragon Age or Mass Effect or those kind of things if they weren't as linear and weren't as polished, I guess, but had a lot more kind of adult oriented
Theme.
stuff to them.
Sure, sure. See,
Like you
that's
wouldn't if a 15-year-old played The Witcher, they go, "This is boring," other than they can see boobs.
but I mean, just in terms of like just comparing it to say Mass Effect, something like that. I mean, is it mostly walking around and pressing the sword button, or is it mostly walking around and pressing the say, select A to say this, select B to say that,
Um,
or is it a combination of the two?
it's mostly, I would say, yeah, I'd say it's a kind of a combination of the
So
two.
it's kind of
Like,
like Mass Effect, really, then.
yeah, it is. It's the same kind of. It's an action RPG. It's the
Yeah.
same kind of thing as Mass Effect, except obviously in a
You
medieval
don't think
setting.
it's as polished though either. I mean, is what you're saying.
No, I'd be interested to find out what Witcher 3 is like
Yeah.
because like they have the seeds of something very interesting there. Like you in the game, the guy Garrett is in love with this woman Triss, and they actually have like a proper adult relationship. Like if you're in Mass Effect, for instance, you go press A to romance John, press B to romance Brian, and that's kind of the extent of the relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Say something nice.
Say something, or in Dragon Age Origins, actually, you could just give them gifts, and like their approval bar just went up with the amount of gifts you gave them. So you just kept giving them gifts, and then they were in love
This
with
is
you.
Hey, this is wonderful. Yes, fantastic.
Um, so Witcher is kind of a more adult kind of thing where you have to say nice things to her and romance her and that kind of thing, and it's not so much about buying her gifts
And
or
is there
presents.
no, excuse me, sorry, is there an overarching story, or is it just mission to mission to mission? But is it, I
Well,
mean, everything's mission to mission to mission, but is it like an overarching story?
that's where the seams kind of showed for me, at least so far. So there's this guy that's going around killing kings. He says it's Witcher 2, Assassin of Kings.
Mm.
So the first cutscene, which is really good at the start of the game, he kills a king.
And that's not your character, is it? Garrett, is it?
Huh?
Is that Garrett? Garrett, your character, or some other guy?
No, no, no. Another guy. Another
Yeah.
guy. You just see him killing a king. Garrett's nowhere near. Um, and then it cuts to Garrett's in a jail cell, and this guy is asking him. what happened that the king ended up dead. So you know that Garrett was involved somehow with another king dying. So this guy is going around killing kings, and so I got to a point in the game where Triss says, Garrett, let's just ditch this finding the assassin guy and let's just go home, and we can be together. And I went, sure, Triss, let's go home and we can be together. And the game went, nope, you just picked the wrong one. We weren't expecting that. So then this guy bursts in and goes, Garrett, like, you gonna help me find this assassin? And Garrett goes, no, I decided to go home with Triss. And he goes, come on now, you can stay a couple of days and help me. And Garrett goes, oh, okay, I'll stay a couple of days and help you. Which is basically, you could see through the game going, no, you're meant to find this assassin, dude. You're not going off for a happily ever after ending. That we didn't design for that. So that was interesting. So with Dragon Age, I couldn't keep myself away from the game. Like I played 70 hours when I should have been writing and stuff like that.
Sure, yeah.
Whereas The Witcher, it's difficult to kind of go back to the game. It's not pulling me into it. Like I could easily play an hour of the game and enjoy what I was playing, but when I've got like a dozen other things to do, it's not like that's popping to the top of my list every time. So Witcher 2, I don't know, it's worth trying to see if you like it. I found so in Witcher 1, which was a very different kind of game, it has changed quite a lot between Witcher 1 and Witcher 2. Witcher 1, Witchers in the world are known as being charismatic rogues who sleep with everyone's wives.
Mm-hmm.
So in Witcher 1, you try and go around and you play like a conversation minigame to sleep with people's wives and people's maids and all kinds of stuff. And every time you succeed, you get like a cutscene where you have sex with the woman involved, and then you get a collectible card with her half naked on it that you can open up from the menu and go through all your cards.
That is weird, totally weird.
Yeah, it's kind of a strange thing. But so Witcher 1 I kind of gave up on when I got about halfway through, I think. But that was kind of one of the things, it sounds strange, but that was one of the things that kept me playing, was these playing cards. Because if you play Assassin's Creed, the collectibles are like feathers and frickin' crap like that. And I can understand why a woman playing Witcher would go, this is a bunch of sexist crap. Mm-hmm. But for a dude like me, collecting half-naked lady pictures was like something that kept me actually going into the game and trying to find the collectibles.
I see. Okay.
So Witcher 2, I dropped that, and I think that was probably a good idea because they're cutting out half their audience by having sexist stuff like that. But as well, a very different game, because Witcher 1 was kind of all story-driven. You're going here, now you're going...
That was only on PC. That was, there was no conversion.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. I mean, it is the best platform, so that's,
A master race. Well, on Windows 10.
But then Witcher 2 is kind of more, no, go and do whatever you want and sort it out for yourself.
Okay, well, that's interesting. I definitely need to find some time to give it a go. I mean, I've got that 360. There is no backwards compatibility, and
console, seriously.
Yeah,
no backwards compatibility, even though we could easily do it because it's just a downgraded PC. Like an Xbox 360 and an Xbox One, they're both just PCs. They're both compatible. They're choosing.
They're different architecture. I mean, the Xbox One now is very...
I've got different architecture between two different PCs. The
I know, but I think that's A86 or 80 something or another. And this new Xbox One is like a PC. It's like a mid-range PC, right? But I mean, which is plenty to be.
Well, low to mid-range.
Sure, yeah. But in fairness, they're selling them for 350 quid,
Huh?
They're selling them for 350 quid. It's cheap.
But you can't upgrade it. That's the problem. Like, I upgraded my PC for like 150 quid, and now it's better than an Xbox One, where it was probably about the same as an Xbox One because it was about 4 years old.
Yeah. So the Xbox One, brand new technology from 2010.
Well, it's just, I mean, you're making something So I've always said consoles are plug and play. I can understand why people want them because you buy a console, you just get a disc and you put it into the console and it just works and you put in you have your controller and you can play on your couch and but there's definite advantages to a console. The problem is that the people making the consoles don't seem to understand those advantages. So they're doing things like shipping games to consoles that don't work at launch, and then you have to get them patched to actually work. No, that's what you do on PC because PC you can patch like crazy and people understand it because.
Yeah, totally. But I mean, yeah, no, I totally know that. But I mean, the patching here is like these consoles for 2 generations at least have all been online. Yeah, a lot of these games are being delivered broken. That's wrong anyway, because, but like people have to get used to it. Like, sorry, you're in the download world now. I mean, like patches are fine. Now, patches that come and don't solve the problem, I think that's the biggest problem. I mean, at the end of the day, people might say, "Oh, I'm pissed off. I've just downloaded a 5 gig patch, for a day one game." It's like, yeah, well, get over yourself, if it works, it works, It's
Well, I
better
just
then.
don't understand. So,
And the
it's
PC's
probably
been doing
different
this for
on
years.
consoles.
PC's been doing this for years.
Yeah, but I never understand people who buy games at launch because apart from them being more expensive, they don't work.
Yeah,
Like,
I agree. Look, people do it because pre-order bonuses, which is like a con from the manufacturers, and also I suppose there's this kind of now it may not exist, but the people trying to sell you these games want you to think it's a water cooler, a Game of Thrones type of thing. It's no point playing Halo Master Chief a month away because no one will be playing it online. It's like, yeah, no, people will be playing it online in a month's time because it doesn't work for the first month anyway. But
well, like I
so
said, the
by,
Twitch thing
by the
that you were
way, I
watching.
must say this as well. I've had an Xbox One, an Xbox 360. I never played a Halo game, including I got a free Halo 3 on Games with Gold one year. But I'm not a big first-person shooter, so I'm kind of like, no. But
Well,
I'm a
it's a
terrible.
console. You can't play a first-person shooter on a console.
Well, you can in Halo, right? But I mean, like,
Well, you can badly. It's like, I don't know what the
no,
best.
you like to cheat with a mouse and keyboard. But anyway, the point is this. I didn't, but then I actually played it because it was like, oh, okay, it's this package. The campaign single player thing, which you can do co-op as well, so non-online, was fine. I got to play all 5 games. I absolutely just creamed them from November to December. Got all 5 games to completion, did the story thing, and it was great fun because I mean you just set down the level. You're not against super duper pro players who are killing you every 5 seconds and having no fun. It was just like goes through the story. It was great fun, a lot of fun. I mean I also Wolfenstein, the new Wolfenstein, and I mean I haven't even got halfway through that, but that's really cool game, must say, really quite good. But I suppose the reason I say that is that you know, those first-person shooter games, you may not like them online, and the online is been a huge problem for consoles going on board. But actually, there's a 20 gig patch for Halo Master Chief Collection when even whether you bought it or not at launch. And yeah, sure, the online has been a bit patchy for sure, but yeah, great package for 5 games. Campaign-wise, definitely a valued purchase for me anyway.
See, I'd be the opposite. I wouldn't play any of the single-player campaigns in Call of Duty or Battlefield.
And
I'd
you'd be
just
like a
play
lot of
them.
people, like a lot of people. But I'm terrible for those Twitch shooters. I can't play them, not with a joystick anyway. And
Well,
I
no,
certainly
but that's the point. You've got a thing that doesn't work properly for first-person shooters. The same as like the gamepad works perfectly for like racing games and like the RPGs like The Witcher and
yeah.
Dragon Age is perfect because that's exactly what you want for that kind of game.
In fairness,
Um,
though, if you're on the console, you are playing, player for player using a joystick. So,
yeah, they had
fair is
the
fair.
they had the game years ago where Xbox 360 and PC were opened up to fight against each other,
Yeah, yeah.
and Xbox 360 players got so pissed off with it that they demanded that it be unlinked.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
they're
we
going to
just
do
took
this
the
with
fun away
Windows
from them,
10. They're going to do this with Windows 10, and they're probably going to do it
and it won't
either.
work.
Well, joystick to joystick on the same service would be fine, or keyboard to keyboard, or just say I'm not doing it if he's on keyboard. Just have the choice. I just think it will be. Look, I think first-person shooters are probably the wrong way to go on those. I think they should be kept
Yeah.
separately. But I do think I looked at that Windows 10 launch thing, like the Fable thing with the. Have you ever played Fable games?
Nope.
No. Well, I mean, they're quite good. They're a bit like The Witcher, but far more kind of cute, less violent, and more kind of whimsical, fairy tale-y. But similar. You kind of walk around, you shoot, you shoot fire or magic, or you slash your sword, and you go and you try and do things. The first game in particular is brilliant. But this one is kind of like an asymmetric, so it's like four heroes against this kind of dungeon master guy who kind of has a totally different, like the villain has a different viewpoint. He's kind of more
Oh,
like
maybe
populist or
those.
something like that. Yeah, is it asymmetric or it's isometric? I don't know. Asynchronous multiplayer. I don't know, but
No,
that
that's
could work.
everything.
I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, there's been games like that before.
Yeah,
It
I
hasn't
think that
been.
could work cross-platform though. That's what I'm simply saying.
Well, they did do a cross-platform. I forget what the game was, but there was a game where the PC players were the strategy players.
Yeah.
It was like a space age game. So the PC players were strategy players, and the console players were the troops. So the PC player would give an order saying, "Okay, send squad A to whatever," and then on the console they get an order, a robotic voice over their headphones, saying, "Commander says to go to point whatever." Um, and I never played it, so I don't know how exactly it went. I mean, I think if I remember correctly, that people on the consoles just ignored the orders, and that kind of destroyed the whole point of the game. Which I could fully understand because if you play strategy-based Call of Duty levels or something like that, like if you play Capture the Flag or Search and Destroy or something like that, 90% of players don't follow the objective. They just go around killing people.
Yeah, but I mean, I mean, maybe we should end on this thought. I mean, I definitely hope when that Windows 10 comes out, that it'll work as they plan, or at least they said that it would in that recent Microsoft conference. Partly because, it's funny. I mean, Dave is living in London now. That's my brother. You know, has an Xbox. My other brother has an Xbox, Robert, and but I mean, like somebody like yourself, Tim, other people I know, not console gamers, it would be good to kind of get 4 or 5 people in because I think one of the problems with the
Well, I'm not
online
getting
world.
Windows 10, just to say that.
I know you. I know you're very agile. I might change you, for whatever. But
I go Mac before I go Windows 10.
yeah, well, I'm on Mac, but
That's what I mean. We can play a game on the Mac.
yeah, but I mean,
We do
like,
that before I go Windows 10 with their keylogger.
yeah, exactly. But no, but what I find weird, there's a conversation about the online community being really toxic. People just don't want to be, they don't mind being online and chatting with their friends, but being online chatting with randomers can just be like just not fun at all. So, or if it is fun, it'd be better if you're going and hunting in packs, but of your own friends. So we'll see how that all works itself out.
Well, that's essentially a clan. I mean, you used to be in a clan. Not like a KKK clan, like a
No.
computer gaming clan.
Yeah, no,
Um,
absolutely.
and then, like, you just have a bunch of people, and then you go and pwn noobs.
Yeah,
Because
well, we'll try and be polite. Anyway, I think that brings us to the close, or at least we've overrun significantly.
yeah,
But that brings us to the close of the pilot episode of the Pundit podcast. I want to thank Simon, my pundit
and
expert, for spending an hour and a half, at least over an hour and a half, on a very shortened list of topics. And hope anyone who watches this has been enjoying it or listens to it on their walk to work, car ride to wherever. And I think I'm going to say goodbye and signing off for this week. And thank you all for listening.
thanks. See ya.